Welcome to the ROI Puzzle. I'm Nicole Stirling from Stirling Marketing. On this show, I sit down with leaders in B2B tech to untangle the numbers behind great marketing. Today, we're joined by Victor Pineiro from Aptitude Software, and together we'll explore what drives someone to take on challenges that test both body and mind, and how that same endurance mindset shapes the way he approaches leadership, growth, and performance. But first, if your leads are dropping off somewhere between marketing and revenue, and you can't pinpoint where because your teams aren't aligned and attribution isn't actually tracking the real buyer journey, you're not alone. At Stirling Marketing, we generate over $7 million in pipeline for B2B tech companies in 12 months, with a campaign engine built to close, not just engage. And I've created something specifically for marketing leaders who need to diagnose what's broken fast. It's called the Pipeline Acceleration Roadmap, a 60-minute strategy session where I'll audit your funnel with you, map out a visual diagram of exactly where your leads are getting stuck, and send you a prioritized action plan that you can take straight to your CEO or CRO. And if you want to finally pinpoint why your leads aren't converting to pipeline and get a clear roadmap to fix it, book your free Pipeline Acceleration Roadmap at stirlingmarketing.net/roadmap. So on to the show. I'm joined today by Victor Pineiro, Vice President for Asia Pacific, where he helps large companies modernize finance operations and accelerate growth. A chartered accountant by background, Victor has spent more than 15 years in leadership roles across Australia, Asia, and Latin America, including at Thomson Reuters, AMP, and KPMG, and brings deep expertise in fintech and financial services. But beyond business, Victor's story is remarkable. He's an open water endurance swimmer who has completed 5 of the world's 7 oceans, including the English Channel, Gibraltar Strait, and New Zealand's Cook Strait, and is featured in The Ultimate Swim, a documentary following his attempt to conquer a solo swim from the Isle of Man to Ireland, a feat that no human has ever achieved before, although quite a few have actually tried. And I'm not going to spoil the ending on how that one went. So today we'll explore what drives someone to take on challenges that test both body and mind, and how that same endurance mindset shapes the way he approaches leadership, growth, and performance. So thank you for joining the show, Victor. I very much appreciate having you here.
No problem, Nicole. My pleasure.
Amazing. So I'd love to dive into what the major shifts are that you're seeing in the industry right now that are affecting this.
I think AI has been a major change in the industry. I think a couple of years ago, people were buying software and upgrading ERPs and stuff like that. But now they're realizing all of them want to do AI, especially the larger players in market. But to be able to do AI, you do need to have good quality data. And that's what a lot of them have been struggling with. I think if you look at we are industry agnostic, just to make it clear from an Aptitude perspective. But if you look at the larger industries out there, like financial services, I can see an acceleration from them on AI readiness. And I think some of the other industries out there are playing a bit of a catch-up, if I'm maybe honest. And I think from Big Four, like accounting firms, all of them are going really heavy on that. Same with other consultants like Accenture. So it's quite a dynamic market and quite interesting what's going on out there today.
It certainly is. And I know you've obviously touched on AI already, but I'm curious as to whether there's a recent trend, and it doesn't have to be AI, it could be changing buyer behavior or something else entirely, how that has impacted how you think about growth and your go-to-market strategy.
I think there's been a change in trend. I think if I look at the skyline around Sydney here, you look at all these big logos, maybe a couple of years ago, all of these companies were fixated on a one-stack approach, and they were all looking at, okay, let's buy one of the large ERP vendors and go end-to-end every single product they got. I think the industry has changed, and I think a lot of them are now looking at best in breed as opposed to a one-stack solution. You do have some of the ones that are stuck with what I would say an old mindset. I think the large ERP vendors, they've been very successful at selling the one-stack vision, but larger players are realizing that there's a lot of other solutions out there that are better than one-stack end-to-end. One-stack end-to-end, was from an IT perspective, might be easy because you're managing one vendor. It has a lot of challenges when it comes to fee negotiations. It has a lot of challenges when it comes to expansion. And usually what we hear there is people are not very happy, the ones that have gone end-to-end one-stack.
I'm curious, take a little detour. If you had 90 days to prove pipeline in a new APJ country, what would you stop, start, and measure first?
Start would be definitely partnerships. So you need to have good partnerships to accelerate pipeline growth. I believe, based on my experience, I've been very successful at building growth in new countries from China to India, Dubai, Emirates. So I've been successful at that, and partnerships have been very important. So that to me is key. Stop, I would say, Springer approach. Many times when you join companies that are growing, they see opportunities and they just go really wide, and then they cast a net so wide that they don't get the fish. So I think having a bit more of a sniper approach, it helps to prove that the pipeline. And then in regards to continue, I think continue to me is marketing, brand awareness. It's very difficult to try to do that direct. So you need to build a bit of a partnership with marketing to get that growth right.
Agreed. So I touched on earlier during your introduction, I was super excited when you shared that you are an ultra endurance swimmer. Tell me a little bit about that to start with, and then I've got a few questions about how that impacts the decisions you make as you lead a business.
Yeah, so I got into swimming. I used to be a competitive rugby player in Argentina. I played 10 years premiership level there. And when I came to Australia, I played a little bit of rugby. My body was broken in too many places, too many years of a contact sport. So I decided to get into swimming. It was easy on the body, started with some of the ocean races on the weekend. Before I realized I was trying to go longer and longer and longer. I'm very competitive. It's the same in my day to day. And yeah, I went to the pool one day. I saw this guy swimming back and forth. And when I asked, I was in a stroke correction in the baby pool. And when I asked the coach, who are those guys? He's like, no, those are the long distance ocean swimmers. And I looked at them, they didn't look further than me. And I was like, okay, I'm going to tackle the English Channel. And 2 years later, there I was at the starting line.
Amazing. And obviously that has then continued on. So you took on one of the toughest endurance challenges imaginable, 60-kilometer swim in the Irish Sea from the Isle of Man Island, which is just an incredible achievement. How has that experience influenced how you approach long-term goals or big complex projects?
When I saw the English Channel, I had people that were telling me, you're crazy, you're going to drown. I was not a swimmer, right? So to me, that was motivation. And I think in life, you can have positives and negatives, but it depends on how you take them. They drive you. If you use that energy and you channel that energy the right way. When it came to the challenge of the Isle of Man, I wanted to do something. So I've done a lot of 35-kilometer swims, like the English Channel. I swam Ireland to Scotland, which is so it's the North Sea, which is similar to the Irish Sea. I swam Spain to Morocco, the Cook Strait, all of them under very cold temperatures. The Cook Strait, I had 12 degrees when I did it to start with, no wetsuit as well. So I was thinking to myself, I've been successful in a lot of that. And the same as you do at your day job, right? When you put a goal, it has to be a stretch goal. It has to be something that scares you. And I thought, well, should I do another of the Ocean 7? And I was like, well, that doesn't sound scary. I know I can do that. So I looked for something that scared me. Something that nobody had done before was what I could measure. Doing 60 kilometers without a wetsuit in the Irish Sea, which required to do a night or a night and a half. I thought that's a perfect challenge. So similar to my day-to-day work environment, I believe in having stretch goals. And to me, that was a perfect stretch goal at the time.
I think that's an amazing stretch goal. I'm silly enough to do Ironman, but a 60-kilometer swim is just incredible to me. I've got to ask then, so there's always a point in a long race where it gets really hard and you have to dig deep. You might hit a wall.
Yeah.
Let's flip it though to go, have you had those moments in your career and what helped push you through?
So yeah, definitely. I think, if I look at my swim, I definitely had at the 15-hour mark, I had a complete block or wall. I definitely hit a wall second I was approaching, right? And if I look at my career, how can I build a correlation with that? So I moved from being a CFO into sales, moved to Singapore with the whole family. I was working with a company where we had 1,000% growth in 2 years, right? I was selling right, left, and center, became the chief revenue officer. So my career had gone into a stretch area for sure. And then one day the CEO gets fired, I get approached, and they're like, Victor, we are growing too fast. We can't keep up. We need to stop selling for 3 months. I had a family in Singapore. I said, look, Jeff was a CEO. I said, Jeff, I can't do that. I can't take 3 months off. I got to pay bills. I got to work. And I found myself having to make a decision to leave the company. As I made that decision, I had to relocate back to Australia. The split wasn't necessarily easy for me, definitely not easy for the family. And then how you rebuild from there? Well, I went into a bigger role, into a much broader role where I had a much bigger team. I was working for Thomson Reuters, which was a much larger company. I was very successful on that role. And again, similar to that example that I told you earlier when people told me I was going to drown, right? It depends on how you take these negatives in life and whether you channel that energy in a positive way. It took me 9 days since I arrived to Australia to get a bigger role, right? So having the right mindset and believing and visualizing makes a massive difference.
Amazing. And what parallels do you see between training for an endurance sport and then building a sustained growth in business?
I work mostly in sales, right? So when you are the managing director or the vice president, the reality is your main job is growing the company. So it's focusing on sales and ensuring that the whole ecosystem around it continues to work and doesn't fall apart. And to be fair, sales is a high energy game. And if you don't have the right energy, if you don't have the right attitude, it's very difficult to go out there. You need to believe in the product. But above all, you need to believe in yourself, right? And when it comes to a swim, it's exactly the same. Like if you go into, just imagine this, Nicole, 3 o'clock in the morning, standing on the Isle of Man, air temperature, single digits, you're on your speedos, about to swim for 27 hours. Like if you don't have that belief in yourself, you just don't even jump in the water. You're like, no, what am I doing? I'm crazy, right? And when it comes to growing a company, it's exactly the same. Like, you gotta, like I'm sitting here, we work in a company that's medium-sized company, but we are getting the largest logos in Australia coming and joining in Singapore. And how do you do that? Is you just gotta have that belief. You just gotta feel that you can do it. And once you convince yourself, eventually it just ends up happening.
Amazing. I mean, that might be your last words of advice, but any last words of advice for, I don't know, a budding endurance swimmer or endurance racer or someone looking to get into sales or a role similar as yours?
Yeah. So I think endurance swimming, it's a sport that a lot of people think I can swim, I can do it, but it's not that simple. The preparation, it's the hardest part. So if somebody asks me, look, you did a 27-hour no wetsuit swim in the Irish Sea, what was the most difficult part? The training. I had to go and swim in Tasmania doing, 3 consecutive days of doing 10 hours a day without a wetsuit, in and out, in and out. That was really, really tough, right? I was doing 1 hour on the ice baths when people do like 3 to 4 minutes. So it's about getting ready. I think when it comes to endurance swimming, don't underestimate the importance of being ready, having the right diet, having the right training, because there's nothing worse than making a half-assed effort, get on the starting line, and then you realize you're not ready for it. And I think when it comes to work, it's exactly the same, right? Like if you want to grow, you need to put the preparation there. You need to have the marketing engine. You need to have your legal team that has to be very commercial, has to be fast, agile. You need to have a partnership team that is ready, that is on the same page. People need to be aligned. So I would say if you want to get into sales, understand that ecosystem, understand what are all the parts of a business and how do those help you make more sales, be a successful salesperson. I was an accountant, right? So I had no background in sales. And somehow, 10 years later, I've now been running sales team across Asia Pac for Thomson Reuters, Wolters Kluwer, and now into Aptitude, that are three multinational companies. How do you achieve that? And I think it's not only by being intelligent, but being resilient, but also understanding all the parts of the puzzle. As you said, the ROI puzzle, the sales side is probably the return, but then you got a lot of investment that are being done across the region. And that's how, once you understand that, you comprehend that, and you comprehend the value each one of them add to you, it's a lot easier to be successful in your job.
Amazing. I think that is incredibly useful advice. I'm going to just say that's a wrap on the ROI puzzle for today, because we've covered quite a lot. Thank you very much, Victor, for joining, for the insights, for sharing your experiences with endurance swimming as well, and how that applies back to business. If you are, our listeners, interested in connecting, you can connect with Victor on LinkedIn. And if you're a B2B tech company struggling with leads that aren't converting to pipeline, grab your free pipeline acceleration roadmap at stirlingmarketing.net/roadmap. And I'll show you exactly where your funnel is broken and how to fix it fast. And if you'd like to share your own story on the show, head over to stirlingmarketing.net and apply under the Let's Chat section at the bottom of the website. This is Nicole Stirling, helping you solve the ROI puzzle one conversation at a time.